Whether or not you accept the offering is entirely up to you.
Yes. Yes.
Speaking of people coming to you with problems and questions,
Yes.
you said you had a list of stuff that you
Yes, I
wanted
have
to
a
talk
few
about.
questions here. How much time do we have? Oh, cool.
As
We're
much
only
time as you like.
we're only at an hour and 15 minutes. We have like 2 hours left.
Okay, what split it into two videos. Get all the value you want. Okay.
Yes. So here, let me run through these. I haven't quite looked at them, but let's see. What transurfing tools? Oh, this is a good one. Right on par with our topic of energy and creation and all that. What transurfing tools can we use to kindle the creator's spark? Ooh.
Okay. What's your answer? Do you want to go first, or shall I go first? Whatever you want.
So what I would do, and I actually did do this about 5 years ago when I had my nervous breakdown and I realized that I wanted to, you know, completely change my paradigm, my reality, is I sort of shut everything off. Like literally, I left Los Angeles. I got my business down to bare minimum of energy I needed to put into it. I really just minimized all of the noise in my reality. I went up to my grandparents' house where, you know, they have acreage and it's out in the middle of nowhere and it's very beautiful Oregon, you know, forest. And I just tuned out of everything and became very, very quiet and very still for probably about 2 years. And it was in this time that I started to really listen to a voice within myself that I'd never paid any attention to, really, and asked myself what I really wanted and all that soul frail kind of stuff. But it was in this quiet space that I started to think of new plans, new ways of existing, new things I could create, new ideas, you know, just in general. I mean, a flood of stuff came to me, and that flood of information and ideas and possibilities and all that is ultimately what has created the reality that I currently have now, right? So being YouTube and doing the transurfing thing and living in a town that I never thought I would move back to, and all these little endeavors and things that I do that are established now because I had that spark. I allowed myself that opportunity to sort of quiet myself and retract, you know, and I've actually given this advice to a couple of people that have come to me that are, you know, going through nervous breakdowns, going through divorces, just filed bankruptcy, don't know what they're doing, you know, all these big, huge, major upheavals that happen in our lives. I've given this advice to some people, you know, is there some place that can you just get rid of where you live, put all your stuff into storage, and go and sleep in a friend's or an aunt's guest room and just go take long walks every day and not worry about finances?
There are huge traditions in the world about retreat.
Yeah.
The Catholics go on retreat quite often. There are whole orders of monks and nuns who have silence as because their paradigm is, if I silence enough, I will hear the still small voice of God.
Yes.
And you have to wonder why something that is infinitely powerful, infinitely present, and infinitely knowing, why that would be a small voice. But then you have to think about that hoary problem of free will again. If free will exists, it's so powerful that it can silence the voice of God. So when I hear something about like the creator's spark, a couple of things come to me immediately. One is, yes, that's a great piece of advice. Go into the silence, quieten yourself enough, because I've got a friend who says, if I have free will, I often use it I'm free enough to screw up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's that idea that sometimes if you don't know what you're doing, the best thing to do is to quieten everything down and wait patiently for the still small voice of the creator to speak to you.
To tell you what's up.
On the other hand, in an ultimate sense, the creator doesn't care, because there's no evidence to show that any one reality is favored over any other. Having said that, if we're talking about the creative spark, I would reframe it in terms of a higher self argument, because the higher self isn't God in an ultimate sense, but it's still something that a lot of people can relate to. My highest, if I'm looking at the creative spark within me that comes from my higher self, then how do I light that? One exercise that is possible then is, what would the highest version of myself do?
Yes, that's a good one.
And it's like pretending to be God.
Yes.
It's like, or at least pretending to be as much God as I can currently perceive, given the current evolutionary state of my consciousness. If that goes ahead, then sure, start off with quiet and then going into and just ask the question, if I were pretending to be the greatest version of myself, what would I be doing?
God, I think so many people are so not in touch with the realm of possibilities, or, you know, I mean, I've talked to a few people when at times when I've mentioned something along the lines of connecting with your higher self, and people look at me like I'm fucking insane, you know, like a lot of people their brain doesn't work like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but specifically, what you can do is that you use that great tool of yours, your imagination, and through an imaginative process to connect to your higher self. You say, I have no idea how to connect to my higher self. Okay, pretend that there is such a thing as a higher self. Pretend that you are visualizing that higher self and you're having a conversation with that higher self, and see what comes out of simply imagining something. Take that as a first step and see what happens. If you have to go into a quiet room and meditate for half an hour before you can get in that state, that's fine. If you have to go for a long walk, that's fine. If you have to completely rearrange your entire life in order to do that, that's fine. But there's a general principle which bears endless repeating, that the answer does not exist along the same track as the question.
Yes.
So if you ask a question like, how do I connect to the creative spark? The assumption that there is such a thing as a creative spark, that by connecting to it, you will be inspired to take some form of action, then play that out in your imagination.
Yeah.
And then see what happens. That's as far as we can go with that one, because that particular person is asking that question from a particular place and we don't know all the details.
Yes, it is very, it's like.
But at least we know, we can say that much. We can say, okay, there is such a thing as a creative spark. Tune into it through your imagination. Imagine what it would be like having a conversation with your higher self, and then see what the higher self has to say. And if the higher self is quiet, give it time.
Yeah.
You've spent all these years not connecting. It'll take maybe a little bit of time before you do establish a connection.
Yes. I actually have a meditation for this that
Oh yeah.
on one of my videos, if anybody wants to watch it.
Put the little thing up.
Yes.
I don't know what those little hyperlinks are that you can embed in
your self. It's actually very powerful. It works. So yeah, maybe for, if you are watching this, that was your question, maybe you could research and find that video, or maybe the editor will put it right here.
Wherever it is, somewhere.
Oh wow, how to stop sabotaging yourself. Well, that was my video for the day. So go back and watch that video. But is there anything in there, Xavier, that you watched the video? Is there any, yes. did I kind of did I round it out, or is there anything?
I think you concentrated on a particular aspect of self-sabotage, which was framing your box, the reality box, and peeking outside of it. And the comment I made was, well, when you do have your reality box, again, you can use your imagination to play in your mind certain scenarios.
Yes.
And I think the best thing that anybody can do is play scenarios in their minds about certain outcomes, even if it's a negative scenario. Remember that your higher self will put the brakes on something so you don't have to be afraid of your own thoughts, right?
Yes.
You don't have
Like
to
that.
think, oh, every random thought I had is going to manifest in some way or another. No, what you do is you say to your higher self or whatever, okay, I'm now going into rehearsal mode. This
Mhm.
is simply rehearsal. I'm trying out various scenarios in my imagination.
Yes.
One in which, okay, if I find that there is a pattern that I sabotage myself, that I find myself acting in a way that isn't concordant or resonant with what I'm actually attempting to achieve, then I imagine a scenario in which I have already triumphed over that.
Yeah.
But the idea is not to imagine the battle, it's to imagine the victory. Or
Yeah.
actually, even better, the post-victory reality.
Yes.
So can you give me an example in your own life of where you used to sabotage yourself?
Well, a big one was relationships.
Right.
Anytime I would meet someone that seemed like they were nice, my initial thought was something's really wrong,
Okay.
and I would do something to mess it up
Yes.
because for me, it seemed like it was more safe to go with someone that had very obvious shortcomings, because then they weren't trying to hide something. Somebody that seemed nice, I was like, oh, there's something really dark and sinister. So I would sabotage it just because, I didn't really, looking back on it, it was really just my fear of needing to rise to the occasion myself to meet an individual on a level playing field that was actually a pretty nice person. I was kind of I was the one that was messed up.
Yeah, because
So
you
I was
because
constantly doing that all the time.
you took this is how sabotage works. You take a stand on something,
Yeah.
and therefore there is evidence to support all reality
Just keep
constructs.
reinforcing
You
it.
will create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, absolutely. Totally.
That's all that sabotage is. Sabotage is simply a self-fulfilling prophecy with a quote unquote negative outcome.
Yes.
Okay. The obverse of that is a self-fulfilling prophecy with a positive outcome. I
Yes.
will choose
Totally.
scenarios in my imagination where I am not behaving in a particular way, nor is this particular person.
Yes.
And sometimes it takes a while to get there. Sometimes you go into that place in your imagination and say, it's not happening for me today. I'm not feeling it. I'm pushing too hard. But I know that the intention is there. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to it later when I'm feeling better about it. And
Yeah.
what can I do right now that's even the slightest bit more positive than what I'm already experiencing?
Yes. Yes.
And then you gradually take these baby steps, and ultimately, baby step by baby step turns into toddling, turns into strolling, turns into striding, turns into jogging, turns into running, turns into real movement away from a self-sabotaging pattern. But the self-sabotage always happens because at some level you are wanting evidence to conform to a position that you have taken. I'm unworthy, I'm
Absolutely.
not loveless, or my models of love are so screwed up
Yeah.
that the only people who loved me were my parents, and they were complete nutcases. And so I think that sort of dysfunctional behavior is love.
Yeah.
Therefore, I will look at that, for example, in that situation. But it doesn't matter whether it's love, relationships, or whether it's money, or whether it's anything.
Yeah.
Again,
Oh,
that question isn't in any context, so there's no specific
yeah.
scenario I can think of. But that's the mechanism.
Yes. Oh, for sure. For sure. And this is something that I actually teach. This is the backbone of my money course. It's like, the reason that we have the money we have, or whatever it is we have, is because we have collected evidence to support our belief about the theory that we've created are surrounding this thing, and the product of that is whatever it is that you have in your life right now, which for a lot of people isn't enough, right? So your theory essentially created a product, and in order to create a different product, you have to upgrade your theory and then simply collect evidence to support that theory instead. And it's
Sure.
it's
And
relatively
you can ask
easy.
yourself a question: why aren't I a millionaire? Why aren't I a billionaire? And I can go into my own belief system about billionaires, and I know that there's programming there or the assumptions that the thing is that when you go into that level of materialism and that level, you're going to be hobnobbing with some really, really questionable people.
Yes.
Have really questionable values, and you're going to come in contact with people who can be really, really horrible.
Yeah.
And so the only way that I'm going to ever become a billionaire, should I ever want that, would be to change that thought. I don't know how other people got to the billionaire status, but there must be a universe in which you can reach that level of wealth and material power while still maintaining an intact soul, for want of a better way of doing it.
I personally have known a couple of billionaires. So my theory is that that is not possible.
You see, this is the thing. And when you said that, I felt this sudden punch of energy right here. And I thought, whoa, she knows what she's talking about. Yeah. You read examples of, like, they're all involved in pedophile rings, and they're in their white slavery, and you hear these stories about people being treated horribly and people treating other people horribly at that level, and thinking, do I really want that in my life? And is it really necessary? Do I need that? Do I need that much power and influence to feel good about myself? Because a lot of this always comes back to people wanting to feel good about themselves.
Absolutely.
And the level of consciousness that tells them a story that will make them feel good about themselves tells you a lot about where they're at.
Yes.
So the whole money thing is wonderful because it brings up all of these questions. And then you have to ask yourself these questions, and then ask yourself, as we discussed in the last podcast, if you want to click on this, if you go back into that story of things that are possible that don't involve money at all, that you can be given things, you can find things, you can take things, you can adopt things, you can simply open yourself and other people will give them to you, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Money is not the only channel. However, in a space of infinite variations, we must, to be intellectually honest, embrace the idea that there is an infinite number of universes where it is possible to gain great material power and influence without succumbing to becoming an absolutely horrible person.
Yes, absolutely. And that's really the crux.
And if we haven't found that, it's a failure of the imagination.
Totally.
And one could argue that any problem ever presented, the first answer will always be there is a failure of the imagination at some level.
Yes, totally.
Next question.
Next question. This is a good one, and it will probably take up the rest of our time because it's kind of a meaty one.
Oh yeah, I love meaty ones.
Yeah, this is a pretty meaty one. How to visualize properly in a way that actually gets results.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you want me to go first, or you want to go first on this one?
No, you go first. You go first. Okay. It's your channel.
Yeah, it is? I thought it was.
Yes.
We're on the variation of reality that is yours now.
No, we're on the variation of reality where we are temporarily sharing our life tracks,
yes,
as is everybody who is watching this, no matter where they are or when they are.
I'm the Oprah Winfrey and you're the Dr. Phil.
That's right. That's right. There. I don't know how Oklahoma this is.
Okay, wait. So I'm going to actually use this as an example now. Okay. Since I just mentioned Oprah Winfrey.
Right.
I don't know why. It's not like I watch her show. I think she's a fascinating human being in the sense that I think I read a book or something at a certain point that was about her life. It's kind of old, or maybe it was a
Mm-hmm.
documentary or something, and I learned a bunch of stuff about her. And
Mm-hmm.
she talked about her feelings before she got her original show, the one that she had in the 80s.
Yes.
Her feelings about herself and her life and who she wanted to be and the challenges that she was up against.
Mm.
And she recalled a run that she was on where she felt that she was, you know, quite overweight. She wasn't doing too well emotionally. There was this show that was on the line. She didn't know if she was going to get it. She was having doubts if she could do it, even if she did. And
Mm.
she went to a track and she was by herself and she was doing something where she was really pushing herself to run. And she played a slide, really. I mean, she used a bunch of terminology about imagining this show happening, and then she ended up going home and the producer called her or whatever and said that she got the show, and this was kind of like the seed that, you know, has
Yeah.
grown into this empire that she has
Yes.
now. This story has a lot more embellished detail, obviously, than what
Sure.
I'm giving, but reading that, and this was pre-Transurfing that I read that, I was like, God, that's so amazing. How did she do that? I mean, a Black woman in the 80s, you know, getting a television show and then growing into the spectacular human being she is today. You know,
Mm.
she's not a polarized character. It's not you love her or you hate her, right? She's kind of just somebody that people respect, right?
Actually, that's not true.
It's not true.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who have looked behind the veil and seen other
Oh,
parts of her that aren't nearly as impressive.
oh,
But
really?
that's not to take away from her achievement,
I would
because we
be
don't know the
fascinated
full
to hear that.
story. We don't know the story of what it is from her inside.
Yeah,
And we don't know whether other people are projecting that onto her because they had negative dealings with her.
yeah, right.
Don't know where that's all coming from, but there's no such thing as a universally loved person or a
Well,
universally loved consciousness or a universally respected one.
I believe that, but she's not shrouded in a bunch of controversy. Controversy
She
here.
is.
Well, not here. She is.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah. Look it
God,
up.
I got to do some research then.
Do
I got
some
to read about
research.
this. I'm
Do
going to do
some
it. Yeah.
research. But it doesn't detract from her achievements.
Yes.
But do some research and then come back to me on that
Oh,
one,
I
because
am.
it's really interesting, especially some of the stuff connected to Dr. Phil.
Oh, I can imagine, yes, that something really crazy happened there for sure. Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But
So anyway, but let's for the sake of the conversation, accept that here is a person who did something quite extraordinary, and
yes,
there's no doubt about that.
yes, she did something quite extraordinary. And for whatever reason, and this is not coming from a feeling that, you know, I can't even describe it. This isn't an idea that I
Mm.
would have, but I have this feeling that one day I'm going to meet Oprah, and
Okay.
I'm going to be shaking hands with her, and I'm going to be sitting down and talking with her. And I don't know
Okay.
why. I don't know what the circumstances are. I don't
Have
know.
you framed that?
Huh?
Have you framed that?
Yeah, it's a slide, and this is
Okay.
odd because it's not again, it's not something that I have thought up on my own. It's a feeling that has come to me, like almost like a premonition or something.
Okay.
Yeah. And I am going with it, and I'm actually you know, meeting this premonition halfway, playing my slide that this is ultimately going to happen one day.
Sure.
So in order for me to, and I have lots of different slides that I play. I'm not really super fixated on my slides because I think my approach to how I live is, like I said earlier, everything's sort of a form of entertainment. So if one thing doesn't work, then I know I can turn around and I can start something else, and I'll have just.
You're not overly attached to your slides. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not overly attached at all. However, I am very powerful in regards to the slide coming to the slide materializing. Like, it really is true. The lesser the level of importance, the lower the level of importance, the easier the thing comes in, as long as you act through and see through and sense through the slide. You gotta.
The thing about what in reality transurfing is called importance, that I don't think is a very good translation, but I'll go with it at the moment. Maybe significance is a better one. I always come up with this image of the horse with the broken leg. If a horse has a broken leg, it's extremely difficult to calm the horse down because it's in pain. It wants to run away, which only makes the thing worse. And very often horses with broken legs have to be shot, because no matter what you attempt to do as a veterinarian, they will resist it in their panic. The thing about importance is that it creates so much resistance. The universe is trying to give you something, but you're screwing it up by creating this energy field of intense preoccupation or worry or agitation.
Yes.
It's like, I'm trying to give this to you. Will you just let me give it to you? Nah, 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 nah. Okay, calm down first, then I can give it to you. And then maybe you'll get out of this situation that the universe, is trying to get you because you've said that. On one level, you've said it. On the other level, it's all, ah. So
you may just need to be euthanized.
You may just need to be euthanized. And I think maybe that's one reason why people die.
Exactly.
They build up over decades such an overwhelming account of restricted beliefs and constricted energy and all this squirreliness. It's like the legend of the Gordian knot. You know that one?
No.
Okay, Alexander the Great is doing his campaigns, comes upon a place where there is a door that is locked with this extremely elaborate knot holding in place the door handles. The legend says that who can ever untie this incredibly complicated knot will rule the world. Many people tried before to untie the knot. They couldn't. All that Alexander did was cut through it with a sword.
Oh, yeah.
He cut the Gordian knot, the temple doors open, and he conquered the world.
Yeah.
It didn't last very long for him, but he did what he could at the time. The point being is that people get so squirmy that at the end of their day, the thing that will the path of least resistance is to die. That body just needs to die, and that soul needs to be liberated from all of that crap so that it can reboot itself and say, okay, now we'll do this again.
Totally. I agree. And I have witnessed people that have such elevated levels of importance. I swear to God, they're like willing themselves to die. Like I can see.
And on the other side, there are people who are so calm and so playful about life. They're 80, and you'd think that you were talking to a 20-year-old.
Oh, that's and I've had people ask me like, well, what's next for you? Well, what are you gonna do? Well, what and I'm like, really, the one only ultimate objective or intention for me is that I'm 70 or 80 years old and I'm not jaded. And I'm not discontent, and I'm still just having fun like I am today. That's really it. Anything between here and there, I don't really care, Which
all goes into answering this question partially.
Yes.
Because the first thing that you can do is look at yourself and ask yourself, where am I screwing up by being overly agitated about an outcome? Yes. And insisting that outcome, that problem or whatever it is, s- is solved in a particular way, and I
Yeah.
become very attached to that particular thing.
Yeah. Oh,
Because did I tell you that? I told you in the last blah, 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 that joke about the guy who was swimming out into the ocean and drowning. Did I?
no.
Oh, I didn't tell you. It's one of my best. Oh, it's one of my favorite jokes.
You got to tell me then.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay. This is yet another way that you can get in your own way and screw your life up. So there's this guy, he's going out into the ocean and he's gone right really deep out. He's away from the shore and he starts drowning. A lifesaver, the lifesavers realize that he's drowning, and a lifesaver comes up to him and tries to save him. And he says, no, 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 go away, you lifesaver. I have faith in God. God will save me. God will save me. And the lifesaver doesn't know what to do because this guy is obviously resisting the help. So he goes off back to shore and they send out a boat. And the boat comes off and the guy goes, no, no, boat of lifesavers. No, no, God will save me. God will save me. Be gone, be gone. And so they think he's a nutter because they're trying to offer him help. And then they send a helicopter, blah, blah, blah. Same thing. Chopper, chopper. No, no, go away, go away. They all give up. And in the end, he just drowns. Then he comes up to heaven. And in heaven, he meets God. And he says, God, I had faith in you. Why did you do this to me? I drowned. I had faith that you would save me. You didn't save me. And God says, because God always talks like a New York Jew, he says, listen to me. Listen to me. I sent you a lifesaver. I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. What else did you want?
Exactly. I love it.
Exactly.
I love it. It's so true.
Right. So exactly. So that's another thing. You can get in the way because you don't recognize help when it's happening.
Yes.
Right? You can make an offer to somebody and you can say, I think I have something that might help you in your life or in your business or in whatever, but I can only offer this to you until you're ready to accept what I'm giving you, until you can even recognize that it is actually an offer of help.
Yes.
You're not going to go for it because you're simply not ready. It's like being a teacher. I've been in teaching situations so often where I'm trying to impart a lesson. Maybe it's a lesson on writing, and they're not ready for it yet. So I have to go, okay, what are they ready for? Okay. And all they do is extend the amount of time it takes for them to achieve what they want to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
It's like, I'm a best-selling author. You've come to me for writing advice.
Yeah.
If you pay for, and you're paying a premium for that advice based on the assumption that I know what I'm talking about, at least entertain what I'm telling you, but sometimes they just don't hear it. They just, because their consciousness is not ready for it yet.
It's not ready.
That's another thing. So that's another thing that you can do. You're not going to be able to frame your slide until you are ready to entertain the possibilities that the answers will come in ways that you may not yet be able to imagine. But at the very least, you can frame a slide. Yeah. And to be more specific, what has worked for you when you're framing your slides? What specific thing can you show this person as an example of choosing a reality, a method of choosing a reality that has then brought real, concrete, materialized results in your life?
Well, I would say that the absolute biggest shift for me, and the thing that has really made my life just easier, I mean, really easier, and what has allowed me to have more of what it is that I want, is me setting the intention, right? And sort of visualizing what that looks like, okay? And feeling it, sort of living in it, kind of understanding the different facets, the different, you know, like, okay, just getting a sense of it. And then once I can get an adequate sense of it, I almost entirely step out of it. I step out of it. The only thing that I do is when my world shows me that, remember I made the comment just a few days ago about achieving things in a short amount of time. And I was like, I didn't even expect to have my house for a long time. But then all of a sudden I have my house. I took the Candy Bridge, right? So the Candy Bridge, reference to Candyland, the game Candyland, is that super easy path that your world offers you, that you're waiting for. It's in line with your intention. You back up, you don't press the issue, you don't try to build your own Candy Bridge and deplete all your energy and narrow your focus to the extent where you can't see the real way to the goal. So I envision the scenario, I envision how I feel, I envision how I'll be, I envision, embellish with as much detail as Vadim says. I do that. And then I kind of just sit back and wait. And I wait until something comes up, and then I move, and I'm not scared to take the action.
Because what happens is that after you've done, because there are several steps in this process. And the first step is always identifying a moment in which something is already a given.
Yeah.
So no matter what this person, again, it's a very generalized question, but no matter what it is, there will be a moment in the future when that state of being, that state of living, that way of being in the world is a given. You're taking it for granted, right? So the first thing you do is you frame that slide. The second thing is you ask yourself, you experience your own energy and you use all of your senses, sight, sound, somatic feeling, taste, smell, the energy. You feel out the energy, and you say, okay, what energy is compatible with that slide? Okay, I've got this energy. Okay, that's compatible. And usually what happens is that the energy is compatible when you have identified anything that might be blocking that realization, anything that might be blocking the energy, any belief system that you have that will say that is incompatible with that vision.
Yep.
And then the next thing is to, as you said, you get into a place of acceptance. I call it settling. I call it settling for more. Most people settle for less. In order for this to work, you need to settle for more. It needs to be settled.
Oh my God, I'm gonna rip that one off.
Feel free. Feel free. You see, the reason I'm so generous with all of these insights is because I don't have a poverty mentality surrounding my thoughts and my feelings and my insights. I know that I sit on top of an endless well of wisdom that I can quite freely share with you all because my cup overfloweth.
Yes, I like that. Well, could your cup overfloweth of video ideas?
Maybe not in this conversation. Maybe later when we're offline, we can brainstorm.
I like that one. Settling for more. It's awesome.
You settle for more. But that's the key. You're settling. It's like that horse with the broken leg. If the horse would just shut the fuck up and settle.
Yeah.
Just relax. Let us give you the injection that will numb the pain. Let us set the bone. Let us put the plaster on. Allow us to help you, and you will find that you can cure yourself of this broken leg without us needing to shoot you, because not only will you be unmanageable, but you will hate being alive because you will be in constant pain. The number of times I've had to deal with my mother on this issue, it's like, I understand that you have all of these preconceptions about how you want to be helped, but really none of them are going to actually produce the result. Trust me, I know how systems work. If you would just shut up and let me do this. And sometimes it's a bit of a battle. And sometimes I have to go deep into myself and just imagining her cooperating. We all have mother issues. All of us who have mothers. If you just, I need to frame it. I need to create a frame where not only am I seeing myself and my mother cooperating to solve issues that come up, but I also have to allow that vision to happen, because I can't be caught up in wanting to punish her for being stubborn.
And it's not going to come from you. The solution's not going to come from you.
No, well, it might come through me.
Through you, yes.
But it's not going to come from me.
Yeah.
But certainly, whatever solution is that's coming, whether it's coming from me or from somebody else, it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
What happens? What the point is that the person to whom the solution comes must allow the space for that solution to come.
Totally.
So, in order to frame a slide effectively, in order to manifest or to materialize effectively, there's always has to be that moment where you simply allow the thing and you accept the thing and you settle for it.
Yes.
And when you settle for more, you find yourself in a place where you can let go because you already settled it. This is settled. This is solved. I'm going to move away. And that at some point, I know that I'm going to get some inspiration to act in a particular way, take action, take effective, minimal action. I do not have to build the candy bridge. Yes. I probably couldn't build a good candy bridge anyway, when there are experts help out there who are experts in building candy bridges. Yes. And there it is. All I have to do is stumble upon my candy bridge and recognize it when I see it.
Yes, absolutely.
So often in my own life, I have stumbled upon things and I haven't seen the first time. In retrospect, I look behind and say, oh my God, there's something there for me. And then I go back to it. And if the door is still open, I walk through that door. If that door has closed, I recognize, okay, well, that door was open, but my consciousness wasn't sufficiently evolved in that area, or my focused attention, my purity of thought wasn't there in that moment. So I wasn't really open to the open door. But now that I know that such a door exists, I don't have a poverty mentality around opportunity as well.
Yes.
In an infinite space of variations, there are infinite opportunities. They're so infinite that the number of frames available is staggering. Do you know what the frame rate of the universe actually is?
I can't even imagine.
Okay. You know how in a standard film, the frame rate is 24 frames a second?
I didn't know that, but I know that.
Okay. It's okay. In order to maintain an illusion of movement, you need 24 frames flashing per second. That's enough for most human consciousness to be able to say, well, that movement looks natural.
Yeah.
At 72 frames a second, you're almost at about the limit of ordinary human consciousness.
What was it again? You broke up.
At 72 frames, ordinary human consciousness, right? So there are, at least in terms of human consciousness, 72 frames per second, every second, to envisage to get an entry point to a slide in a frame. Okay. But that's nothing compared to the frame rate of the material universe. And I'm just talking about the material universe. The frame rate of the material universe is measured in something called a Planck second, or a Planck second, depending on your pronunciation, right? Do you know what a Planck second is?
No.
Okay. Do you want to know?
Yes.
Okay. So to understand a Planck second, first you have to understand what a Planck distance is. The Planck distance is the smallest possible distance through which a material and interaction can take place that has any meaning. Beyond that, science in its current understanding cannot delve any deeper.
Okay.
Right? A Planck distance is so small that if the Planck distance were the size of a penny, a real penny in our macro universe would have to be 90 times the size of the current universe in order to contain it. Looked at another way, a Planck distance is so very tiny that it is beyond human comprehension.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So that's a Planck distance. Now, Planck time, you know how fast light travels?
Yes.
180,000 miles per second, through almost 300,000 kilometers per second, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very fast. The Planck time is the amount of time it takes for light to travel a Planck distance.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine how short that period of time is.
Yes.
If a Planck second were the same size as a normal second in our universe, the universe would have to be trillions of times older than it already is in order to contain the number of Planck seconds in a normal second.
How do
It
you
is
know all
tiny.
this stuff?
What?
How do you know that? Why do you know this?
Why do I know this? Because I've spent my entire life trying to understand what I'm doing here.
What the hell's going on?
What the hell is going on? It's even as a child, I was constantly in a state of, what the hell is that? What does this mean? What is this reality I find myself in? Who am I? Where did I come from? Where did everything come from? So my entire life has been dedicated to creating a narrative about how everything actually works. The ultimate insight that I have is that the only thing that really exists is consciousness. Everything else is up for grabs.
Yes, yes.
The reason I'm talking about the frame rate of the universe as being this tiny, 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 tiny thing that you don't even have to go anywhere near, because even at 72 frames a second, human consciousness is about at its limit. Mm-hmm. Maybe 144 tops. I know that there are gamers that can react to particular games at that level in their reaction times, but they've really actually had to up their ante of their consciousness in that particular area to be able to do it. The point is that in every second that passes, there are huge opportunities to move to another track.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes.
So it doesn't help to have a poverty mentality about opportunity. So that's another thing that people can use when they're trying to create reality.
Yeah.
They have to accept that there's infinite opportunity there, effectively infinite.
Yes.
As far as ordinary human consciousness is concerned, it is effectively infinite. Yes. You can argue whether it's ultimately infinite, but it doesn't matter. From a practical point of view, it is effectively infinite. Therefore, if it's something going to, the real thing is that I'm always going on about in my own head is congruence and alignment. If your heart, you talk about this constantly, if your heart and mind mm-hmm. are congruent with that vision, that frame, mm-hmm. and I would argue if your soul is congruent with that frame, in which case your higher self is okay with it, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. then if you settle for more, settle for that version of more, mm-hmm. and just let it go. Mm-hmm. Just let it go. How often does the universe have to hear you? Mm-hmm. If you overdo it, you're basically sending the message that you believe that the universe isn't hearing you.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Oh, totally. And that's
right?
where
that's where you're creating over significance and over importance and agitation again. Yes. So this detached light attitude is going to help because, okay, I've got the slide. I know what's that's what it is. How you get there, you need to leave open to what you call outer intention.
Yes, you're essentially when you are driven by anxiety or doubt or wondering how something's going to happen, you're closing in on yourself and your world. And when
you're creating a narrative that is incompatible with what you purport to try to manifest.
Yes, absolutely.
So what's going to win? In that case, the thrashing horse that won't let the veterinarian near it is going to have to get shot.
Totally. And
because it's just in an untenable situation.
Yes. When you use that analogy, I know, yes. I mean,
but there are any amount of YouTube videos that show wild animals that are caught in traps who just relax long enough. So, I mean, they're agitated, but they relax long enough to let the rescuer rescue them.
Yes.
Because if you're a wild animal, and we're talking about wild animal consciousness, your worldview is usually either something is a threat or a non-threat, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So if you interpret everything as threatening, you end up with people like where you used to be, where a nice guy finished last because you could not accept the possibility that somebody who was presenting nicely was not hiding an agenda of threat.
I was the thrashing horse.
You were the thrashing horse. The nicest person in the world who would have been perfect for you would have completely failed with you because you simply weren't ready. It wasn't until you elevated your consciousness enough to have Eric in your life that you were able to finally give yourself enough of a break to have a really good person in your life.
Yes. Yes.
And he was the same.
With so many things. I mean, with so many things. It's a collection of things that make up a life, you know, a good life. It's not, I mean, and I know we all have our struggles with one area in particular or another or whatever, but like bringing it back to the question of, you know, how do you visualize properly in a way that actually gets results? I'm not actually, besides my encounter with Oprah, like my slide is really just, that's one specific slide I play maybe a couple times a week at most. Besides that, my slide is more a collection of ideas. It's a well-lived life. It's a high-quality life with love and money and fun and adventure and excitement, and I'm doing transurfing stuff and I'm blowing up on YouTube and I'm blah, 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 blah. It's just like, it's all just elevated stuff.
But it's also congruent with who you are.
Well, now it is.
Well, now it is, but we're only talking about the now. The question is about how do I do this in a way that is effective? One of the questions, wording is very significant to me. Being a writer, I'm hypersensitive to the language people use when they frame questions, because the quality of an answer is only as good as the quality of the question. Mm-hmm. And so often I find myself having to reframe a question for me to be able to give an effective answer. Now, that question used the word visualize. That implies that you see something, but real frame construction, slide creation, envisagement involves every sense.
Yes, so true.
Right?
So true.
It's not only that, it even goes down to your gut feeling. How would your gut feel in this situation?
Yes, totally.
Where the ultimate thing is getting rid of all of the squirrely stuff and getting to that settling for more space. If you can see something in your mind's eye, hear it with your mind's ear, taste it with your mind's tongue, smell it with your mind's nose, feel it with your mind's skin, but also that internal feeling of, okay, I'm just completely settled with this. That's when that becomes effective. And that takes practice.
I smell Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, smell her. Put your nose right up against that cheek when you give her a peck on the cheek, and have a good big inhale.
Totally. And I'll say to her right at that moment,
I love your perfume.
This is exactly how I imagined you smelling, Oprah.
Exactly. And then she'll go.
Yes, and she'll be like, security. So somebody posted on the Facebook group the other day that they asked a question: how many times do I have to repeat an affirmation until it works? And I was like, you know, that little emoji of the monkey covering its eyes?
Right.
That was me. I'm like, okay, this is not, it's more about how much you feel the affirmation, right? How much you sense the affirmation, how much you believe. And that's another huge part of it too, is you can say something or visualize something until you're blue in the face. If you aren't feeling it, it is not going to happen. You will not resonate at the frequency of material information and opportunity that's floating around in your external reality, in your external environment, that you are to connect with to actually materialize that embellished slide, period. You can't sit there and say, I'm going to be wealthy. I'm going to be wealthy. I'm going to be wealthy. You could say that your entire life. If you don't believe that, which oftentimes I think that's why people get into affirmations, is because they feel like they have to do something because they're actually not feeling it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, yeah, as I said in the last podcast, if you have if you have anything attached to an affirmation that evokes a blockage inside you, it's not going to work.
nope.
If you say and again, you don't say I want to be wealthy, you say I am wealth.
Yeah.
I am the embodiment of wealth,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you entertain what the feeling of wealth is.
Yes.
But if you say the word wealth, and every time you say the word wealth, you feel a constriction in your body, or you feel that something is wrong, then you need to go into that constriction and clear it. You need to visualize some way of removing that, because your body is telling you somatically, it's communicating to your consciousness,
There's a blockage.
there is a block here. And I'm telling you this, the body is actually an extremely powerful tool of feedback.
Yeah.
I know that I can be in the depths of sleep, and if I dream that I am in a flooding house, that's my body's way of saying, your bladder is full, you need to wake up and go to the toilet. Right? That's just the way it works, right? At least with me, because I'm so body sensitive because of my peculiar neurology, that I know some people aren't as attached, some people aren't as connected to their body, but I would suggest that whatever connection you have to a feedback mechanism, and it could be through signs, it could be through anything.
I have another thing, and this will be a preface for a longer video that I'm going to do. It'll probably be about half an hour long. I did this about a year and a half ago, and it was wildly effective. I mean, it was amazing. So what I did was I imagined a life that I mean, I'm still living in the same house, so it's not like it was a drastically different life track with a totally different set of decorations and scenery and all that stuff. Same life, but I wanted a better relationship. I wanted other income streams. I wanted, more friends. I wanted different components to come into that scenario, right?
Sure.
So what
You're
I did,
embellishing the scenario. Yeah.
embellishing the scenario with the things that I wanted. Okay.
You're doing the interior decoration on the mansion.
Exactly. So what I did was, and this is just going to be a very brief breakdown because I'm going to do about a half an hour special video on this. What I did was I wrote down 2 lists of things. The first list, what will help me achieve all that stuff. And then the second list, what will hurt me. And these are personal characteristics that would get in my way of me getting this stuff. And it took me about...
Both are rather long lists.
Yes, they are. And I went off. So here, this is what I did, okay? And it was so cool. And then I'll tell you the reason why it was so awesome. What I did was I took about 2 days to do this, okay? So shut off my life. Didn't really check my phone while I was doing it. Really just hunkered down and went within, right? I sat in my bedroom in a meditative position by my window, and I meditated on each of these items, where they came from, how they've helped me, what they've done for me, where they came from, how they hurt me, what sort of damage I experienced in my life already, so on and so forth. And when I got through this list first, the positive list, I'm like, oh my God, it took me a whole day, right? When I got to this list, the negative list, and I know this is going to sound weird, it was so fucking fun. It was like one of the most fun things I have done in a long time. I sat down with literally each little thing. I'm demanding. I talk over people. I think I'm smarter. I'm manipulative. I blame easily. I'm panicky. I am hasty. I'm shy, so on and so forth. And I literally went through the entire list and thought about each of these traits, backtracked it to where I first could acknowledge the presence of it, realize the damage that it had done in my life. And it was like magic. All of a sudden, within like, I'm going to say 2 weeks, all these things started to change in my life. It was, and I don't even know where this came from or what happened or what, I don't, it was truly bizarre.
Think of it like this. If I've got a garden that has an irrigation system, right? And there's a blockage in the irrigation system, so only a small amount of the water can get out. The garden will die, especially in Australia, right? Right? It certainly in certain parts of here. We had a joke during the Sydney Olympics, because especially from Americans, because they'd write things to the Olympic information service, and they'd say, we got the impression that Australia is just one huge desert. I mean, how do you guys, I mean, where do you guys get your water from? And somebody jokingly responded, we don't water our plants, we just import them and watch them die. The point I'm trying to get at is that you've got a garden, everything looks horrible, and then suddenly you find where the kink in the hose is and you unblock it, and all of a sudden the water flows again. Yes. And it isn't immediate, but within a few days or weeks, everything that you thought had died suddenly springs back to life.
Yes.
We had the most horrendous week after week after week of bushfires here.
Yeah.
Incredible, because it hadn't been properly managed for decades. Yeah. The whole bushland thing. Maybe they've learned their lesson now. There were days when I would walk outside and the sky would be red. It was like living on Mars.
Like hell. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the sun would be up in the sky, completely obscured by red dust. Yes. From the deaths of millions and millions of trees.
Yes.
And millions of animals.
Oh,
and
God.
It was a terrible time to go. It was a terrible time to go through. You go back now and there are places where the bush is starting to regenerate.
Yeah.
Right? Things can look dead. Do not be deceived by appearances. Your consciousness is extremely limited. It doesn't always see beyond the surface. That's another thing, right? Just because it doesn't seem to be in place because the mirror isn't showing it to you yet, doesn't mean it isn't there. It just means that the mirror isn't showing it to you yet.
It doesn't mean it's not happening. There's a process, but
there is a process. There is a movement between realities that your consciousness needs to move between those realities in order to make that thing realize. If you move through enough of them, you suddenly start looking weeks later at all of these blackened tree stumps that are showing new growth.
Yes. Yeah.
And you think, wow, that's miraculous.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because those trees have very deep roots and they are used to it. In some cases, the fires were so terrible that they sterilized the soil. It will be at some time before that soil regenerates. But in many places, the regeneration has already happened and is already well on its way. And you can see the hope for a new reality emerging from there. But what I'm saying is that you think it's miraculous that you went through all of your blocks and all of a sudden things happening. The water was always there, ready to flow through you. In your, how do I put this nicely, acquired stupidity, right? You put things in place that were going to block that flow.
Yeah. Yes.
And then all of a sudden things start working and you wonder why. Well, all you did was unblock the flow.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
The universe was always predisposed to giving you all the water and nourishment you needed in order to cultivate your garden.
Totally.
It was always there.
Yeah.
You were getting in your own way. People need to get out of their way.
Yes.
And I say this fully knowing that there are times when I get in my own way.
Yes. Get out of the way of yourself. Totally.
Yeah, get out of the way of yourself. But and you needed to go through that narrative and you needed to do a lot of personal archaeology and you needed to do it through words and all of that sort of stuff in the list.
Do you think people would enjoy doing this if I led them through a video on how to do it?
I don't think that they would enjoy it.
Oh.
I think they need to do it, but it isn't necessarily enjoyable because it wasn't enjoyable for you. Oh. The first part
I didn't like the nice part. I liked
Exactly.
basking in the gross stuff.
Exactly. So what will happen is everybody, depending on their own psychology and their own conditioning, their own level of consciousness, might find one side or another side preferable, or they might find both sides preferable, or there might be somebody that says, that looks like too much work to do in 2 days.
Yeah.
So, but I would think that it's a necessary, I think it's a bitter pill to swallow for some people, but they still need to swallow the medicine.
Yeah.
But I have learned that you can offer a solution to somebody and they won't take it until they're ready.
Yes.
So by all means, offer it.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying that not everybody's going to take you up on the offer. Some people will modify it and say, you know what, I'll only deal with one issue at a time. One thing in the positive and one thing in the negative. And until I clear that, that's fine. I would advise that it's probably best to start off with the small stuff, something that doesn't seem like a huge mountain. And if you whittle away small stuff like, I'm too selfish. Well, what does selfishness mean to you? Is selfishness really enlightened self-interest? Is selfishness something that narcissistic parents have been telling you all your life? Because for them, selfishness is when you act in your best interest rather than theirs. It's all it can get really squirmy if you look at that.
But I want to do that to people.
Sorry?
But I want to do that. I want to
do it. But you asked me whether, that wasn't the question that you asked me. You asked me whether people would enjoy it. And I'm saying that there will be people who will enjoy it, and there will be a lot of people who won't enjoy it, and there are people that will hate every minute of it. But all of them on the outside will be a better version of themselves because of having done it.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes the call to a greater the awakening to a greater reality does not sound like the song of angels. Sometimes you don't get the heavenly choir, ooh, the light, oh, and all everybody.
Like in Shawshank Redemption, you got to crawl through the sewage.
Sometimes you do, and sometimes it isn't very long, but there is something called the edge effect. And that's where people encounter a barrier between where they are and where they want to go, and they start going through that barrier, and the barrier feels endless. But because they don't know where the barrier ends, so they stop walking in that direction because they're experiencing discomfort.
Yes.
Having said that, in an infinite omniverse of infinite scripts, it is conceivable to imagine a path that will take you somewhere without all of those horrible feelings. But then you have to imagine that.
Yes.
And then you take the easier path, which might be a little longer, but you give me the impression of somebody who doesn't mind lancing the boil and experiencing acute pain, but then letting everything drain, and then everything gets calmed down. Other people prefer to take it a little bit more step by step.
Stick a needle in the boil instead of lancing.
Just a little bit. It's or like I say, just slit the sandbag just a little.
Yeah.
It won't drip out as much or as quickly.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. So yes, I think it's an excellent exercise. All power to you for offering it to people, but people will react to it according to where they're already at.
Yes. And I'm going to, for those of you that are still listening who have made it, I think we've been over 2 hours now.
Oh, gee. I really think we should divide this into two.
Yeah, possibly. For those of you that are listening, I'm going to read my full lists online. For those of you that want to hear all of my bad stuff.
That's so generous of you.
Okay, I got one question for you before we go.
Yes.
Are you going to put that Snuggie on so everybody can see it?
Oh, yes. This is yes.
But I don't know what it is, but you got to show it.
Okay, fine. All right. Listen.
Oh, it's Tigger.
Almost. So this is the behind the scenes look.
Oh, so good. Yes, it's you.
It's me.
That's gotta be the thumbnail. Hang on a second. Put your hold it closed a little, and then I'm gonna take.
Let me do up my buttons.
I'm gonna take a screenshot, and then we're gonna put this image on the thumbnail for the video.
Right. how you can possibly take anybody who dresses like this seriously.
That's it.
I think that they have anything to offer. Well, you're going to have to get over that.
That's it. That's the thumbnail right there. That's
right.
it. We got it. We've got it. So good. So good.
Oh, it's so comfy. It's so comfy.
Yes, I have one of those.
It's a bit cold here at the moment in Sydney.
Yeah, I wish I could.
It's snowing in the Blue Mountains where I have my house.
Oh, wow.
Not this one, but my other house. One day I will, when I move back there, and when the renovations are done, we can do a podcast from there. Completely different.
That sounds great.
Okay, well, that's certainly a lot done. We covered 3 questions at least.
Yes, we got 3 done in 2 hours and 20 minutes. I wonder if we can hit 4 people watching this to the end.
Actually, how many did the last get viewed? How many views?
I don't know. I think 3 or 4 people said that they watched it to the end.
Oh, okay,
that's
great.
Impressive. That's impressive, man. I mean, that's holding the attention of somebody for well, last one was an hour and a half. That's pretty good.
Well, I only ever watch your videos on double speed.
Oh, you do?
Because so it's quite unusual for me to get you at normal speed.
Oh.
Because I normally get you. You normally talk a lot faster than you do, and your sentences are a lot quicker because I'm always getting you at double speed, because that's the way it works for me, because I can absorb information much faster than you can deliver it.
Interesting.
And also the amount of information I have to deal with every day. If I didn't have a double speed on YouTube,
You die.
There's not enough. There's literally not enough hours of the day. If I could go to triple speed, I would, but YouTube doesn't do that. I do watch movies like that to at least 25 or 50% faster because I get it. And then what happens is that my mind shifts gears and I see it and I perceive it as normal, even though less time actually elapses.
That's kind of scary. I don't like that. That would be scary for me.
Well, it's just a training.
Yes.
Anyway, so thank you all for sticking this far, if you've gotten this far.
Yes. And let us know if you want Xavier to return or me to return.
Or anybody to return.
Yes.
Or maybe just want us to shut up.
Or we should maybe start taking callers and ask people to call in while we're
Do you have that facility?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, well, let's give that a shot.
Yes, let's do that. Well, next
Reality Transurfing Talkback.
Yes.
With your host.
Yes.
Renee Garcia. And
yes.
our special guest, Xavier Waterkeyn. Hi there, everyone.
Yes. And then there will be a behind the scenes battle for power like Oprah and Dr. Phil, because they both know that.
Right. That's right. And then I'm going to have my own YouTube channel where I subtly make veiled comments about what a horrible person you are behind the scenes. And
hey, people are already doing that. You could join.
Really?
Them. Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes.
Really?
Yes, I have a whole group of people that are waiting for my fall.
Some people just love the drama, don't they?
Oh, it's so good. It's so
they just need the drama.
And I'm oddly enough, I'm kind of waiting for my fall too, because I think it's going to be highly entertaining.
Renee Garcia, the queen of transurfing, involved in yet another scandal.
Yes. The queen of transurfing's fall from grace. I'm excited.
Right. That's the entertainment channel. We'll do a special expose on all of your deep, dark, nastiness. Yes.
Outtakes, me yelling behind the scenes, get out of here!
Is this what enlightenment looks like?
Yes. Me raging, get out of here!
Screaming like one of those blue-haired women.
Yes. Why won't you just do what I want you to do? Oh God. Okay, it's getting.
And then realizing that the camera's on and completely switching. Hi there, everyone.
Welcome to Transurfing TV. I'm your host, Renee Garcia. Thank you for. Exactly, because it's all there, everyone. I'm not special. I have no special abilities, and I've got all my deep, dark, dirty spots, as all of you do. I'm not. There's.
Oh yes, but that's part of your subtle game, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
It is.
it's you're hiding in plain sight.
Exactly.
That's what you're really doing.
Yes.
You're distracting people with all of this bad stuff
Or authenticity.
and authenticity, but we know that what's really behind it, you're using it as some sort of smoke and mirrors game so that we don't dig too deeply into what's really going on.
You're on to me. You've cracked the code, Xavier.
Oh, well, I haven't, as if I haven't seen that one before.
Nobody will ever see or hear from you again.
That's right. Oh, whatever happened to him?
Yeah.
Oh,
No more Xavier on Transurfing TV.
Don't know.
Too good. All right, Xavier. Well, do you want to do another one?
Sure.
Sounds good. Well, everyone, I'm going to post an announcement that we'll probably take some callers on the next one. And we'll have Xavier answer the questions with me, and we'll get into your dirty things.
Yeah. Give me the dirt. Give me the juicy bits. Yeah.
Totally. So I will make that announcement. Thank you everyone for watching the Reality Transurfing podcast. And of course, like this video if you do in fact like it, and comment in the comment section below. I love Reality Transurfing to win some of my programs.
Or hate it. Whether you give us positive or negative attention doesn't matter, because your attention will feed this pendulum.
Exactly. Feed
I'm
us.
happy to suck out all the energy you want to give it. Oh yeah.
Exactly. That's it. That is the face of a YouTuber trying to get energy from the adherent.
The power. Sorry.
Feed me.
Feed me your energy. Feed me. Oh, yummy.
Give me your attention. Oh no. I hope somebody doesn't. This is the kind of stuff that somebody takes a clip of and it's like taken out of context.
Could take it completely out of context.
Totally. Sounds good. Well, let's do the next one and let's get even more outrageous and answer some of these people's questions and see
let's loosen this whole thing up.
What?
Let's loosen this whole thing up. Let's really play with it.
Yes. Sounds good. All right, Xavier. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to the next one.
Me too. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.